Well, how are you today? I'm Jim from the Swing. Good to see you, and I'm glad you're with me. Hey, we're talking about a people, the Israelite people that have grown from 70 that went down to Egypt to meet Joseph. Now they're almost 2.5 million strong. And they're going through life, and it's tough. It's really tough because now they're slaves, and they're, the babies, their next generation is almost seemingly going to be wiped out, and yet that God has provision. God goes before, and He made these provisions. And we start talking about a guy named Moses, and the reason his name is Moses is when they put him in that little basket made out of bulrushes, and they sent him down the Nile, and when Pharaoh's daughter saw him and heard him cry, as she of pulled him out of the Nile. Well, she called him Moses. That's what it means to be pulled out of, Moses. And so he was pulled out of the Nile, and she named him Moses. And she looked around and she goes, "Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I want to keep this. I know it's a Hebrew baby, but she's so cute. I want to keep him. I wonder how in the world I'm going to do this." Now, here's where God works in all of our lives to use us. As this whole ministry or whole call is being presented, it takes more than just one person. It takes people that are hearing God and listening and attentive and hearing the heart of God that helps in every aspect or all a part of the provisions of what it takes to make a call successful. You know what I'm saying? So here, this little baby. I mean, at this time, he's just a little baby. But when this Pharaoh's daughter looked around with questions, all of a sudden, Miriam, that was Moses' sister, Miriam, was along the bank. She had followed him down to make sure he'd be protected. And she jumped out of those weeds or wherever she was. She said, "Ma'am, would you like for me to get a nurse for your baby?" And so, isn't that just like God? It did just
Yes.
like the Lord. And she said, "Yes, and I will pay you." It says it right here. It says, "And I will pay you." Can you imagine that? Here, she took that baby. She got paid to bring that baby to the baby's mama, Jochebed, and the mother got to nurse that baby. And traditions say that baby got to stay basically in her presence for, it could be up to 5 years, because they wanted to bring it back to the Pharaoh's daughter when it was weaned and more stable in philosophy and this and that as far as a little child, and then they could go on with life. So here's the amazing thing. They never did say actually how Moses, when he was 40 some years old and he saw the situation where the Egyptian was beating up a Hebrew, and he went and killed him. It says in that he knew he was to be a deliverer. Inside of him, he knew that he was to be God's hand extended to deliver these people. Well, how did he know that? What time? I mean, once he got back to the Pharaoh's house, I mean, he wasn't thinking much about delivering. He was thinking about having a blast, because I mean, he was living in the king's palaces. He was not living in West Palm Beach. He was living in Palm Beach. I mean, he was right on the ocean. He had everything he wanted, all the cars he wanted, everything he wanted. He wasn't thinking about being a deliverer, that's for sure. But what instilled within him that he had a call on his life, and he was special. I believe during that time where Jochebed and that family took care of him for those years, however many it was, it could be up to 5 years, that they instill within that. Listen, it's so important that we understand those little children, they get a lot of their ideas, they get solidified in their beliefs, and they are really set from day one in those first 4 or 5 years. I believe with all of my heart that mom, that dad, that sister taught them the things of God, taught them about God Jehovah, taught them about a God that loved him and had a plan for his life. He'd never leave him nor forsake him. That we are a very special people. God has a plan for our life. He has a good plan, a good end. And he is still within that little boy the fact that he was special and that God had a plan for his life. You know, that's so important for grandmothers and grandfathers and mothers and dads to realize the importance of those first few years. One say, well, we'll just let him grow up and let him make his own decision. No. You instill within them the love of Jesus every day. From day one, 4 or 5 years, you've pretty well got him set, or her set. Hey, well, isn't that something? God's going to use him. We're going to see it happen. I'll see you tomorrow.